Good evening. Be sure to stick around after the presenter is done because we've got a couple of class things to deal with. Our guest entrepreneur, Barry Jessurun, has successfully launched 4 separate restaurant concepts. I won't go into any of the details about it. I'll let him tell the stories, but they are interesting. I'm sure he's going to touch on a number of entrepreneurship issues, but he's also going to touch on some issues of managing people. People are important in any business, but they're especially important in the hospitality business. Please give a warm Eastern Connecticut state welcome to Barry Jessurun.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here. Last week I spoke at Woodstock Academy at a leadership conference, and I got to work with some students. It was kind of fun being able to do that. And the cool thing about working in smaller groups like that is I get to know who's here and why they're here. So I want to start that way if I can. Does anybody want to share with me like why they're taking this class and what they hope to achieve in the future? Does anybody want to comment on that? Anybody? Come on, you're taking the class for a reason, right? You got some story about why you're here and where you're going. Anybody want to share with me what that is? That's great.
I don't know what specifically in the business administration field that I want to go into, but I know whatever I do, I want to be like a CEO or an entrepreneur so that I can kind of like master my own way through the industry.
Great. Anybody else want to share? Why you're here, why you're taking the class, what you're hoping to achieve, business you're thinking of starting, something like that? Yeah, right here.
A better background in entrepreneurship in general.
Do you have anything you're planning on?
Not really, but just kind of want, I've already learned a lot, and we're only like halfway through the semester, and a lot of things that I didn't know about entrepreneurship, and I don't know, just wanted to continue to do that.
Cool. Well, of all the people who work for me who are in school, I encourage them to always take some kind of a business class. Because as we head into the future, the unknown future, a lot of it is going to be a lot of you working for yourselves and figuring out or working with groups of people and figuring out new offers. And it's absolutely great, background for you to have a business, orientation through school. I recommend that everybody take it. Even my daughter, who's majoring in dance, I go, take a business class. You may be in your 30s, you may be owning your own company. So it's always, you never know where you're going, but having a business background of some sort is really going to help. Anybody else want to share? All right. So the first thing, before I tell you about me and why I'm here, I want you to notice yourself. I want you to notice your mood. Like it's 7 o'clock at night, it's a Wednesday, are you tired? Did you eat? Right? Are you grounded? Are you ready? Are you open? Are you in a mood of willingness or a mood of wonder? Or are you tired and you're like, who the hell is this guy? Why do I have to be here? Check in with yourself and see where you are. Because it's our moods that generate or help shape our reality and our reactions to those moods that help us open or close possibilities as we move through our life. So the question I often ask a lot of people is, do you have moods? Or do your moods have you? And wherever you go in life, you want to check in with yourself and see, am I acting out of this mood? Or am I really acting out of what I care about and where I'm going, right? That's kind of crucial because mood is 90% of everything. And in the hospitality industry, that's kind of what we sell, right? It's an experience and we want to generate a mood. We generate it with our employees, we generate it with the menu, we generate it with the decor, the whole works, right? And it's vital. And it's really, think about what you go by, think about the shops you go to, It's a mood you're going for. And you've probably noticed this where you might walk into a store in the mall and it feels off. It's because the mood is off for some reason. Whatever it is, the staff doesn't look good, they're not engaged, they're grumpy, whatever, right? So mood is really, really important, okay? And we'll check in with you again on that. So I'm going to promise you 2 things tonight. We're going to have a little bit of fun, right? A little back and forth. And the other is I'm going to expose you to some new thinking that you probably haven't thought of or thought about in a certain way. Those are my 2 promises to you as I engage with you tonight. So let me tell you a little bit about me, I started working when I was 15 years old, got a job cleaning tennis courts. You know, I was across the street. I could learn to play tennis. It worked out. I went to UConn. I went to UConn for a semester. It didn't quite work out for me. I was trying to treat UConn like a community college. They didn't like being treated like a community college. I figured I was the one paying the money. I was the one who gets to make the choices about the classes I took. They didn't quite see it that way, and they wanted me to take classes I didn't want to take. When I got my second semester classes, it was a mess, and I just said, it's not for me. So I dropped out of college, and I moved to Boston with the idea that I am just going to learn as much as I can from the people around me. Ask questions from anybody in any job that they're doing so that I can learn. And the other thing I wanted to do was to work in industries that I like doing, right? Things where I could either do it for free or get it for a discount. So I got a job at a health club. I like to play racquetball, so I worked out. I played racquetball for free. I got a job at a liquor store that had a deli, so I was able to get my lunches at a discount, and I got my beer at a discount, right? Those are things I like doing, but I got to be engaged in it. And that liquor store was actually kind of cool because they stocked every beer available in Massachusetts at that time. And I got to know a lot about beer. I looked into opening a brewery at one point, and our most recent restaurant has 20 beers on tap. So I'm still connected to that beginning because I was open to learning. Okay? After I moved out of Boston, well, actually, I was working at a health club, and I was promoted to management there for my 4 years that were there. I moved into New Hampshire because Boston was too expensive to live in, and I really wasn't getting to where I wanted to get to. I was trying to do radio and television broadcasting. I wanted to work on productions, TV shows, things like that, news channels. I did make music videos, and I did do some creative advertising, but there was no permanent jobs available in Boston at that time. So I wanted to go skiing, and I really couldn't afford it. So I quit my job, I broke my lease, I moved to New Hampshire, and I got a job at a ski area. And not only was it free skiing at that ski area, it was free skiing at any ski area in New England. You just had to get a letter of introduction, and you could go anywhere. So I used that, and I skied at a lot of ski areas in New England. And I learned a lot, and within my time period there, I was promoted into a position that I actually created because I saw the breakdown, right? There was a problem, and I went to the mountain management, and I said, here's the problem, and here's how it can be fixed, and here's who can do it, and this is what he needs to be paid, and I got hired for the job. So I wrote the job description up and gave it to them. They approved it. And my last year there, I worked in the lift department. I was in charge of hiring and training all lift attendants. We ranked second in the nation for safety in mid-sized ski area in lifts. Because I took what I learned by learning to fly an airplane. I got my pilot's license while I lived in New Hampshire. And I applied it, all the safety things and everything else, to lifts. So I took from one discourse and I put it to another and implemented these things, and I made a difference. Right? At the water park, I ended up doing the same thing. I worked at a water park in the summer, ski area in the wintertime. Again, stuff I like to do. I was on a swim team when I was a younger kid, hanging around water parks, right? You meet people. So we ended up the same thing. We made a lot of changes, and the last year I was there, we ranked second in the nation for mid-sized water parks for safety because I took from different discourses and applied them to what I was doing there. And to make money and have fun year-round, I bartended. And I did that again to meet people, because you never know what's going to happen when you get together with people, right? It's different things happen because of it. I left New Hampshire and I came back to Connecticut to help my family open a restaurant. It's called the Vanilla Bean Cafe. We just celebrated our 30 years in business this past August. We started with 16 seats, grew it to 90 seats inside and 80 seats outside. We are pretty well known. We were the launch site of Vanilla Coke in 2002, got national and international attention with that. We get people from all over southern New England and different parts of the United States, and travelers in Europe, because we're on the state's longest scenic highway. Route 169 is the state's longest scenic highway, and we get a lot of people from that. But I didn't have enough background for business. And I wanted to do more with it, and I didn't quite know how, so I figured I had to go back to school. So I looked into going to Bentley, a business school up in Boston, mainly because my wife worked there. So I could get in there at a discount and maybe take some business classes and learn a little more. In that seeking time, I actually found a business professionals course that takes place online, and it's based in California. So I spent 2 years in that course working with entrepreneurs and business people from all around the United States and different parts of the world. And then I spent 3 years in their graduate program. Their graduate program is called Leadership, Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Power. okay? Staying with and working with those people and learning with them changed how I see the world. And I was able to see the Vanilla Bean Cafe as something different than I thought that it was. I realized it was an asset that I could build from. We were actually thinking of selling it because it really wasn't ever going to make enough money for me to take care of kids in college, take care of my retirement. But I was able to see it a different way. We used the story of the Vanilla Bean Cafe that was an asset, and we leveraged it to be able to open another restaurant. So in 2005, we opened our second restaurant. It's 85 Main in Putnam. That's a full restaurant, full bar, raw bar, sushi bar, and we just added a wine cellar about 5 years ago. Also with an outdoor patio. People kept telling us Yukon needs something. Literally from the first year we opened the Vanilla Bean, they said Yukon needs something, Yukon needs something. We could never really find anything. The land was all owned by the state, and nobody was doing anything with it close enough to the campus to make it work. I learned in the year 2000 that they were going to make a downtown. Have you guys been to the downtown that they built up there? Right? So that was like their 5th attempt, and it had failed before. So people were like, that's never going to happen. I'm like, it doesn't cost me much to show up. So in 2003, I paid my annual membership fee to show up and be on the Downtown Partnership Board, so that by the time they actually got their together in 2008 and were looking for tenants, I got the first email, I made the first phone call. I was the first person to show up looking to rent space there. So when people ask me, how does a small little restaurant like you manage to get the corner location, it's because I was paying attention. It didn't cost me much to pay attention. Right? I forget what the annual membership fee was, but it was enough, and I was there. In 2008, negotiated a letter of intent. In 2011, negotiated a lease. Opened in 2012. That's how long that project took. Right? But we were persevered, right? We paid attention, and we got it done. Same thing, we're at Dog Lane Cafe, and they like our concept there. Anybody been to Dog Lane Cafe up there? It's a fast casual restaurant. It's like Panera Bread, right? Panera Bread on steroids more, really. We've got a beer and wine license, and food quality is so much better. It's all hand-prepared. Our whole restaurant group is all hand-prepared stuff. We have prep cooks that make all our food, unlike a place like 99 or Applebee's. It all comes in a box, and they just heat it up and make it look like the picture. Okay? So that's what our group is based on. So they were telling us they needed something else. They wanted more full service in this area, higher quality, place they can get a beer or wine after work. So we did some more research and found a place down here, not far from here. It's about 2 miles in the Big Y Plaza. It's called Fenton River Grill. We opened that up. It's a lot of shareable stuff on that menu, 20 beers on tap, most of it from New England, and we're about 1.5 years or so into that one. So that's kind of the background of what gets me here, but my ability to be able to do that, to go from one small business and get to the other, it's because I stepped out and I learned and I asked questions, right? And that was one of the most important things to do. I didn't try and figure it all out on my own. I knew I didn't have enough. In fact, we went to the University of Connecticut on 3 separate occasions in the 30 years we've been here and asked for help. We got together with graduate students and we figured out a plan. And one of the plans was a market study before we opened Dog Lane Cafe. And University of Connecticut students got together and helped us get that done. So it was great to have them as a resource, and they're willing to work with us because we didn't know. And so we reached out and asked. And one of the funny things that one of the professors said to us is, not a lot of people do this. Right? We're here as a resource, and a lot of people don't ask for help. Because a lot of people think they can figure it out on their own. And while you probably can figure some of it out on your own, it's the network of people you have around you, right, that help you figure stuff out. It's so much better. Part of why you go to a university is not just to take the classes, right, but it's to meet people. It's the people you meet and network with are going to be part of whatever future you're headed for. You may be opening business with them. I think, wasn't Facebook opened with college roommates or something like that, right? And I think Dell Computer was the same way, right? So you don't know. I mean, it is education, but it's also the networking and the people you meet. The high-level universities, at the Harvards and the Yales and all that, it's more about the networking. It's more about the people you're going to go meet there, you know, that while you're going there. You know, if you think you're just going there to get your ticket punched and leave, you shouldn't be going there. Right? It's all about the networking. So, one thing I want to tell you is I am not an expert. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you this is the best way, this is the right way, this is the only way, this is a fact, right? All that I'm going to talk to you tonight is an interpretation. It's a way that I see the world. It's the way that I see things that work for me. They may resonate with you, they may not, right? But the thing about our lives is we get to do that, right? We get to invent things as we move along or borrow from different discourses to create something that works for us. And we're going to do something a little later where I borrowed from different discourses to create something that's my own. I invented it, and it works for me. It's not necessarily the truth. It's not the right way, but it is a way, and that's the type of things that you want to look for. Throughout my career working, I was always one of those people who are rule breakers. Not like I'm just going to break the rule for the rule's sake, but I always broke the rule in a way that it helped everybody else. Right? This is stupid. Let's do it this way instead. It's easier for everybody. And we're more profitable, or we created less breakdowns, or whatever. So I always challenged the status quo, always pushed a little bit more, and that's what you guys are supposed to do. Right? That's what changes the world. Especially people coming out of universities and stuff like that. You got to go, no, that's not good for me. Let's find another way to do it. Right? And that's the direction that you want to go, and that's what has helped me get to do what I want to do, basically. And the cool thing about the world, I don't want to walk around with this because I'm going to need to quote something, is it's not a fixed and knowable place. We walk around thinking that everything is a fact, and it's not. Everything's an interpretation. We refer to it as it's the Cartesian framework. René Descartes is the guy who sort of started this for us in the 1700s, and we looked at things and the mechanical processes and said this is all the facts and all that. But the thing is, it's nothing but change. It's constant change. And breakdowns happen when there's change, and the marketplace drifts when there's change, and opportunities come about because of change. Right? And that's what you guys are going to be looking for as you go through your lives, is what is changing in the marketplace, where can I create a product or service or offer that I can create and sell inside of that? Or you'll be working for companies that are doing that. Right? Stuff is being invented all the time. We live in language. Our whole way of being and interacting with everybody else, it's all based in language. Language is a verb, right? Everything is a story. Everything is created from language. So there's this thing called Green Valley Hospitality and all these restaurants. It started as a story. It started as a drawing, a thought, and then a drawing on a piece of paper, and then conversations, and then requests and promises, and all of a sudden there's this thing. I mean, we're in a building that had to have thousands of people, had to have conversations that created this. But it all started in language, and language is powerful. When we opened Dog Lane Cafe, I sat there with my oldest daughter. She was a freshman at the time, and I said, I want you to look at everything in this restaurant. Just look, pick out one thing. Pick out anything. Whatever you see here, I had to think about. And then I had to find a way to create it with language. I had to surround myself with the right people, the right architects, the right builders, the right people to lend me money to pay for it all, right? But it's language that makes it all happen, right? We're here tonight because of a request that was made, and I'm here. You're here, right? Through language, everything. And the more you understand the human language and how it works, and the more you learn how to use it and create with it, right? Oh my God, it's like infinite possibilities. It's so much fun to be able to do that, to language things into existence when you realize that's what you're doing. It's so cool. So one of the quotes I want to read is from a guy named William James, and it's recently. And he says, "The greatest revolution of our generation is the discovery that human beings, by changing their inner attitudes of their minds, can change the outer aspects of their lives." Right? In a way, that's almost self-help mumbo-jumbo, but the fact of the matter is what's going on, right, in our minds. If we change our mindset, we open up ourselves to a whole space of different possibilities, different things can happen because of it. And even though that's fairly new, it's not a new concept. There's a Roman emperor named Marcus Aurelius who said back in the 1st or 2nd century, our life is what our thoughts make it. Right? It's your mindset and your mood and your thoughts and how they turn into actions, right, is what creates the life and the reality that we all have. So the way the businesses grow, right, is like I said, if you have these thoughts, they turn into conversations, they turn into actions, and that's where like stuff happens, is getting from the thought process to the action process. Everything lives in language. So in a book I learned about my class in California, it's called Understanding Computers and Cognition. It's a book that was written actually for computer programming. They wanted to understand the human language so they can program artificial intelligence, right? Interacting with computers to try and make things happen. And what they found in there is that, and this is not a fact, this is just a thing they could work from, right? There's other interpretations you can go with, but they worked with these things, that there are fundamentally 5 things that we do in language. Anything you say is one or more of these 5 things on a very fundamental level. There are promises, requests, declarations, assessments, and assertions. There's different ways to look at that. There's different words they use. But fundamentally, there's just a small number of things that we're doing. In my business, after I declare it into existence, right, and I have to manage it, I manage it pretty much with just 2 of those. And they are promises and requests. Right? My job is to get done. So I make requests of people. I hire people to help me. I take in business partners, whatever it is, and I make requests. And hopefully I've surrounded myself with good promisers, people who say, yes, I can get that done. Right? And that's how we get things done. I want to go over a diagram that's in that book. So this is what's called a basic conversation for action. And if you're working with anybody, this is the map you use. And we really only use the top line of it, the line that goes across the top. In our business, we refer to that as the yes path or the happy path. Obviously, it's the happy path because we're getting stuff done, right? So me, as the requester, I'm going to say something like, hey, please take out the garbage. And the promiser says, yes, I'll do that. They come to me and say, okay, great, I've done it. And I can either say, thank you, I'm happy, that great job, or I can go back and say, you forgot the bathroom garbages or something like that. But the idea is that's where we're trying to get to in any request. All the easy part. The rest of this stuff that you see here are what we refer to as breakdowns, when it doesn't work. So when I work with my managers, I work with them on learning how to make really good requests and to surround themselves with really good promisers. So when they make a request of someone and it doesn't get followed through on, who do you think we look at for why it didn't go wrong? Anybody? Common sense? You ask someone to do something, they don't do it. Right? Whose fault is it? Who do we blame? Anybody? Me, the requester, or the promiser? Yeah, so it's not so much, we're not going to use the word regret, but yes, so normally in our culture, we always blame the promiser, right? Hey, could you take out the garbage, right? You don't do it. I go, what the hell, right? But it may have been I asked the wrong person. They may not have known the full story of what taking out the garbage means. Maybe I didn't educate them enough to actually be a good promiser. Because that's my job as the requester, is to surround myself with those people. And too often in business, people are making requests of people who can't fulfill or can't fulfill fully. And that's where the breakdowns come from. Okay? So we work with our staff and our managers to become really good requesters, and our staff to become really good promisers, so that we can take care of each other. Because when we get stuff done and we don't cause breakdowns for anybody else, then the whole thing moves at a nice even pace, and we're not going back and trying to pick up the pieces. Okay? So we want to get really good at being a requester, and our managers are taught to look at their request if something doesn't go right. What did they do that probably could have been done better on their part? Could they have, maybe they were running out the door when they made the request, or maybe they didn't tell the full story about what the request is. Maybe the employee was too new, right? So it's on us as the requester, right, to surround ourselves with good promisers so we can get stuff done. I'm not going to go into a lot of this other stuff. You might be able to figure some of it out on your own. But the one I want to go to is B, from 2 down to 6. Because we're not omnipresent, we don't know what's going on all the time, we allow the employees to say, I can do that, but, right? It's a yes, but is what we call it. And they tell us what they're doing. And they may be taking care of a party of elderly people, and I don't know that. So I can say, okay, I'll get somebody else to do it. Or I can say, no, Amy's much better with old people. Let her do that, and you do this, right? So they get to say, yeah, I can do that, but I'm doing something else. And then we can organize around that to make a better request, either the right promiser or move people around to get stuff done that we need. So this is how stuff gets done, in language. It's how things get generated. That's how work gets done anywhere, right? You want to work on becoming a good promiser wherever you are, and you want to work at making a really good requests. So one of the philosophies that we have with our staff is that they're there working for each other, right? That when they show up, it's that they're there for each other. And so when things are getting done, they know that they're not just doing it for, because somebody asked them, it's because they're helping everybody else when they do it. And it makes things flow really smoothly when we do that. So again, I want to touch on the living in language kind of thing. And a good example of that you can all appreciate is 20 years ago, Twitter was something a bird did. But somehow, it's now something completely different. Because somebody invented something in the marketplace that caught on, and now it's something completely different. And that stuff happens all the time. People are always creating and inventing new things in the marketplace, and it's always done through language. And it can't exist unless there's a word for it, which is really kind of interesting. Like, who's the guy who said there's a thing called gravity? Right? But he said, oh yeah, but well, gravity was there all the time, is what they say. But no, it wasn't. Not until he brought it into existence with a word, and we go, oh yeah, okay, great, that's what that is. Right? Until that time, there wasn't a word, it couldn't have existed for us. It's a weird concept, but that's how our language works. There was a group of people when they were doing the polio vaccination all around the world. I forget what year they were doing this, but they kept on going deeper and deeper into the Amazon with a guide. And they found that when they got to a tribe and they wanted to inoculate them all, they found that giving gifts to the chief was a way to get it done. And then he would allow them to inoculate everybody. But they got to this one area, and the thing they were using, like it was their fail-safe, they could always count on this. They brought a Polaroid camera, and they would take a picture of the chief, and they'd give it to him, and he'd be so impressed with the magic of it, and he'd accept the gift, and everybody would get inoculated. They got to this one tribe where the translator was having a hard time with it, and they were having a hard time getting them to agree, so they brought out the Polaroid camera, they took a picture, they show him the picture, and the chief looks at it, nothing, no recognition, nothing. And he gives it back. So the guy with the camera's like, well, maybe it wasn't his best side, so he takes another picture, and he gives it to him. Blank, nothing. And then the interpreter was the one who figured it out. He took the chief, brought him over to the river, and had him look at his reflection in the water. And when he saw the reflection in the water, he had a word. And when he had a word, the picture on the Polaroid showed up. So before there was a word, he couldn't see it because it didn't exist in his mind. So that's how important language is to us. It helps us not only see reality, it helps us generate and create the reality that we all live in. And that is what entrepreneurs do. Right? That is when you look at people who invented Facebook. Very easy to see. They totally invented a whole new reality for us that we all interact with now. They did it off stuff that was pre-existing, the internet was there and things happened. They pieced it together and came up with something, because everything is always a variation on a theme. It doesn't come out of nowhere, right? But that's what happens, and that's what entrepreneurs do. And that's the mindset that they have when they're trying to work on stuff, is they're actually inventing. And they can only do it with language. And we all do this together. And we all do it together with language. We create it with the words we use. So I need to work with someone. Someone who has a job, who wants to come up here and work with me. Who has a job? Tell me what your job is. Otis? Who's your customer? Who's the customer in your job? Okay, so this works better when I have someone who actually works with customers because we can see it better. So anybody have a job where they interact on a daily basis with a customer? And who's your customer? And how do you interact with them? And do you have a team of people you work with? Great, what's your name? Chelsea, come on up. We're going to do this because we're taping, okay? Yeah, we're taping tonight, man. That's why I look good. So we're going to go on a different track, right? I invented this. It's not a truth. It's not like a fact or anything like that. But it's a practice that works for us. It's a mindset that worked for me from when I was about 18 years old, and it works and continues to work. And I teach it for the people who work for me. So, thinking about it differently, answering the question differently. I'm looking for a different answer. Who do you work for? Who do you have to satisfy in your life every day you get out of bed? Who are you doing this for? Me. Right. Who are you doing this for? Why are you here? Why are you in this life? Why do you have a job? Why are you at school? Right? Who are you doing it for? Me. Yeah. And when you actually approach your work from this idea, it creates, actually, you become a more effective you. Okay? So we're gonna go around in a circle here. You can use the microphone up to your mouth. Now that you know what you're doing and you're at this job and you're doing it and you're there for you because you got some story about your future, right? Yeah. And working there makes some kind of difference, right? Whether it's money for the weekend or some longer story, you have a story. Yeah. Great. Story, you have to have a story. It's good. So who do you think you work for next?
I want to say my boss, but I feel like I work for my family next.
Yeah, that's definitely, the boss is the wrong answer. Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask it another way. Who's got the money? It's easier out there, by the way, right? Standing up here, a little harder. Out there, you might get it, but we'll give her a chance, okay? Who's got the money? Every day, we wake up, right? They were in business, we need money. Who do we get it from?
Me? I don't know.
Anybody out there? Customer, right? So the customer, right? That's we create a business because we have customers that we want to get to, and they have money, and we want it because we have to pay you, well, right? But also we have to, pay other people, right? And hopefully have some money left over when we're all done. Great. So you're happy. You got this job. It's working out. You got money for the weekend. You're saving. You're getting experience. Whatever it is. The customers, they come in. They love interacting with you. Right? Oh, good. No, she's here. Oh, this is going to be great. Right? Who do you think is next?
I don't like being up here.
That's okay. Throughout your life, you're going to be in places you don't like. Right? Yeah. It's going to happen to you every year. You're going to be in a place. You're going to be a beginner, and it's going to feel bad. Right? Get used to it. Learn to make friends with it. Learn to be comfortable with it. Because when you are a beginner, you're more open to learning. You're more open to go, this is great. When I work with people in their 40s and 50s, it sucks. It literally sucks. Because they got their blinders on, right? They think they've figured out the world. They think it's this fixed, knowable place. And I'm trying to come up with these new ideas and concepts to share with them, and they can't get it because they are too far down their own path, right? In what's called a mood of certainty. And they shut down all their future possibilities when they do that. The idea for you, for your whole lives, is try and be in a beginner mind as much as you possibly can throughout your careers. Step out and learn something new, put yourself in uncomfortable situations, because that's where we learn. So you're uncomfortable, right? But you're going to get the most out of this They won't, right? You're going to get, it's going to be better for you because you're living it through your body and your mind and your feelings and your sensations. They're just sitting on their butts.
Yeah.
Okay? So you're doing great. So you're happy, right? Your customers are happy. Who do you think is next? Let me ask the question this way. Can you do this job by yourself?
No? So your coworkers?
Coworkers, right? You show up to work and they go, oh, great, she's here. It's great, life's going to be easier, today's going to be easier. And in theory, they're doing the same thing for you, right? That's how the job and the workplace should be set up, is when the right people are there, it works. Everybody's there working for each other to make this thing happen, right? So, what do you think is next? It's going in a circle, we can figure this out, right?
The boss.
The boss, right? Whoever it is that makes it possible. So these are the people that have the story that you're part of. They make it happen. You're an actor inside that story, but who are you doing it for?
Myself.
Right. You're taking care of the customer because that's how we get money. You're working with coworkers you like working with because everybody's job is easier because we all show up in a good mood and we help out and we don't slack and we don't whine and we don't complain. We don't try and leave early, right? Those employees, anybody work with those people? Yeah, we try and get rid of them. Right? If we have people who show up in our environments where they are those people and they're obviously not there working for their coworker, we get rid of them. We give them a chance. We talk to them. We say, hey, you know, you're always choosing the easy job. You always want to go home early, blah, blah, blah. Is this what you want to do? And if it is, then we coach them and we work with them to try and get there. If it's not, we teach them how to quit. Because you got to know how to quit. Nobody teaches you. Who here has been taught how to quit? Have you been told not to quit? Doesn't our culture tell you that? Right? But you got to know how to quit. If it's not right, you got to know how. So we actually help people to quit. And I tell my managers that if you've done this right and you've done well up to that point, that employee will come back and thank you. And the first time an employee came back and thanked one of my managers, she was so happy she had to come and tell me. Right? Because if it's not working for you as the employer, it's not working for them either. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you want to make it where it's beneficial, right, for everybody. If they can rise and be that employee, it's great. So what's interesting about this is it's a circle. And the reason it's a circle is because the arrows go in both directions. So I work for you and your coworkers. How is it I work for you? Anybody? Right, I got to bring in the right tools. I got to create the right environment. I have to surround her with the right coworkers. Do you want to be paid? Yeah. Right, so I've got to make sure you get paid. Do you have other things in your life you want to do? Yeah, so I have to schedule in a way that you can actually have other things in your life that you do. Right? You don't want your check to bounce. You want a good schedule. You want to be surrounded by good people and stuff that works. Yeah. My job is to create all that for you and for your coworkers. You'll work places where that's not happening. Right? And when you can think about it in this way, you'll recognize it right away. You go, man, these people don't care about me. Right? They're using me. And they do. I mean, there are places that are like that. And that's the way they're set up. And it's not good or bad. It doesn't matter. But if you're there, and it fits in your story, use them back. Learn as much as you can before you leave. Get as much as you can from them before you leave, right? Because everything you do is a stepping stone and something that you're going to learn from. But ideally, you want to work for an organization like this that cares about you and your coworkers, because I work for them so we can take care of them. Yeah. That's why you were hired. That's why they were hired. And that's why it works. But the most important person in this transaction is you. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, right? You're doing it for you. Now, the word that I use is selfish altruism. Has anybody heard that before? So it is what it sounds like, right? We're doing it for ourselves. But everybody else is also benefiting because of it, right? You're all taught not to be selfish, right? When you're kids, don't be selfish. Share with your brother, whatever it is, right? But you have to be selfish. And especially at the ages that you go through from like 15 to like 25, That's what you're trying to figure out. You got to do this for you, but you want to do it in such a way that you're helping everybody else to get it done. And that's what I did. When I was in about 18 years old, I figured out I didn't work for the boss. I figured out that actually who I worked for was me and the customer and my coworkers. And if I didn't like them, it didn't matter. Right? I could still do my job, and I can still do it to the best of my ability. At that water park I told you I worked at, the owner's wife was crazy. Total, right? Just unhinged at times. And I didn't like working around her. Fortunately, I didn't have to very much, but every now and then she'd show up. She was in the office one day, and she was raving at one of my coworkers. And I told her she had to leave. I said, you got to go. This isn't working. And she said, you can't throw me off the property. It's like, well, yeah, I can. I'm the manager of the park today, and my job is to make sure it runs smoothly, and you're in the way. So she said, you're fired. And I said, you can't fire me. I don't work for you. And she left. So I called my boss. He didn't know what's coming. Here's what I just did, right? Because I didn't work for her. We had a great water park. We had great staff. We had a trainer come in and say to us, I want you to know we've never given a perfect score to any of the people we've tested. He randomly chose 7 people from our staff. Fortunately, he randomly chose the 7 best. And he gave 7 perfect scores. He said to us, I don't know what you're doing to these kids, but keep doing it. So you don't fire someone like that because they throw you off the property. Because who I work for are these people, and they don't really matter. I was taking care of myself. I was taking care of the customers, surrounding them with the right people in a good mood. I was taking care of my coworkers. I rescued him from a bad situation, right? And I took care of myself. Now, I was single. I didn't have kids. I didn't need to rely on the job. If I got fired, it wasn't a big deal, right? So it worked at that time. It may not have worked in my 40s. But the idea is you want to approach your work from here. From here. Who are you doing this for? Right? Anything that you do. And it sets up what I call your entrepreneurial mindset. Because when you're there doing it for you, you're going to do the best you can. Right? Because everything you learn is taking you somewhere. It's opening up a space of possibilities. There's a lawyer that I knew up in the Putnam area. And he had a guy working for him. He worked for the state. He was one of those people. And he kept on giving him stuff to do. He'd say, hey, I want you to do this job for me. And he would say, I don't have to do that. It's not in my job description. I work for the state. I don't have to do that. So 3 years down the road of turning down jobs, he finally gets into a law firm that he wanted to get into. And he starts 3 pay tiers below where he would have started had he done all that was asked of him. But because he mistakenly thought he was working for the state and not the value in his future, he screwed himself. Bad mindset. Right? So if you're wandering around and you're working somewhere and you go, yeah, it's not the job I want to do. When I get out of college, I'm going to do something different. I don't have to apply myself. I can blow that off. You are damaging your own future. You want to be the best you can be in any moment of whatever you're doing. That sets you up for entrepreneurial thinking. That sets you up as a leader of people. What do you think of that?
I think it's useful and helpful. That's the same word for mine.
Great. Thanks for coming up and doing that with me. Everybody, please give her a round of applause. So when I did this before, I had someone comment at the end. They said, if that happened where I worked, it would be great. Yeah, it would. It would be awesome. And that's what we try and do. So that is what I refer to, because I don't have a real good name for it. And it's a really great place to approach your life from. If you're going to be a leader, entrepreneur in the future, you have to be doing it for yourself, but always with the idea that you're taking care of others as you do it. That's how we work with our staff. My job is sort of, I refer to as servant leadership. My job is to tell the story, create the story, hire the people to work inside that story, and then my job is to support them. So if I have someone who's been working for me for about 6 months, and I still have to manage them, it generally means I have to get rid of them. Like, I don't want to manage people. That's not what I do. I want to educate, I want to train people, I want to get them mobilized, right, to take care of themselves and where they're going. And if I can tell a good enough story and a compelling enough story in the right kind of environment, then they're just going to do that. If there's someone I still have to manage 6 months down the road, it's like, oh, I have kids. I don't need that, right? So we try and build an environment where that is possible. So I'm going to read a quote to you. So leadership is a linguistic act. Right? We've been talking about how we all live in language, and leaders do that by making requests, surrounding themselves with good promisers. Leadership is a linguistic action which a person or group of people offer well-grounded or seductive interpretations about the concerns, anticipated breakdowns, and necessary practices for taking care in the future that mobilize people into action. That's what they do. They bring forth reality with the language that they use, right? And it's a well-grounded one. It's like, this is good and true at this moment in time. This will work, right? Come and follow us. Seductive, so the right people show up. I want to do that, right? How many of you applied for jobs that you just want, that's what I want to do, right? Because they've told a compelling enough story that gets you in the door. And that's first and foremost what I have to do. I have to create an environment and a story that's compelling, not just for the customer to walk through the door, but for the right employee to walk through the door. Because I can't get it done if I don't have the right employee. Right? So my conversation, my story, has to be that. It has to be well-grounded, seductive, okay? About concerns, anticipated breakdowns, things go wrong. Can we fix them? Right? Can we get this done smoothly? Have you worked in places where things go wrong and people freak out? Right? Yeah. Who wants to be around that, right? We plan for stuff to go wrong. We have backups over backups. We know that stuff's going to go wrong, and we are ready to deal with it. Last semester, I've been in this business for 30 years. Last semester at Dog Lane Cafe, I was 2 tables from a choking victim. I've never had to use the Heimlich maneuver. I've taught it when I did lifeguard training. I taught people how to use it. We refresh every 5 years. Never had to use it. I had to use it. But because I was ready, because it was an anticipated breakdown, especially in the industry I'm in, I was able to move in quickly, do the Heimlich maneuver. You do have to squeeze harder than you think, right? The first time didn't work, the second time worked, right? But I was ready for it. And it all took place in less than 15 seconds, and not one person on my staff knew anything went wrong, and only the tables around us knew something had happened. But if I wasn't there ready to work and work that way, it could have become a much bigger problem. It could have become a much bigger problem, right? So you want to work around people who can take care of the anticipated breakdowns, right? And the necessary practices for taking care in the future. We're all heading towards some kind of future, and the word there, I used it earlier, is mobilize people into action. My job is not to motivate. I had someone in an interview, he asked me, what are you going to do to motivate me? Like, what am I going to do to motivate you? Get the f out. How's that for motivation? You know, my job is not to motivate you, right? Your job is to motivate you. That's your job. My job is to create a place that you want to be at so that you can be mobilized. My job is to tell a story that creates a space in which you can be mobilized. If I have to motivate you, I'm not hiring you. If I have to motivate you when you're working for me, I need to get rid of you, right? That's not the kind of person I want to be around. So we make a great effort to not be around those kind of people, right? Because I go to work every day, I want to see people I want to see. One of my partners, when we first opened 85 Main, I told him this. I said, if you ever got employees there that you walk in and you go, oh God, it's Amy. That's telling you to get rid of her. Try and fix it first. If you can't, then you have to get rid of her. This is where you show up to work and life every day. Surround yourself with people you want to be with. Surround yourself with people that are mobilized into action based on the story that you're telling and what you're doing. Right? It took them years to get to that point. It's hard. And even for me it was hard, because part of who I am, I want to help people even though they never asked me for help. That was a problem I had. And you guys do the same thing? right? Someone's suffering, you go, I can help you, but they didn't ask you for help. And you're wondering why it's not working. It's because they didn't ask you for help, right? So I had to learn that who I'm really taking care of is the whole staff. And trying to take care of just one who never asked me for help was a disservice to everybody, including that person and including myself. So I had to learn how to get to there. It wasn't something that I read in a book and figured out and could do right away. So the meat of this is really the question and answer period, and we're going to get to that very shortly. And I want you to have questions for me. I'm standing here. I've been in the restaurant business for 38 years. I've been working since I've been 15. I've been surrounded by all kinds of people. I've worked with thousands of employees. I've worked with investors and designers and builders and all of this stuff, right? I've created a lot of things just using my brain. So think about things that you can ask me about where you're going and how it relates to what you're doing, okay? Because entrepreneurs are artists who create with language, right? Like inside this building here, right? This is a work of art. Somebody thought it up and created it. Everywhere you go, everything you interact with, your iPhone, right? It was created by an artist. It was marketed by somebody else, right? But it all exists in language, and it's all created in language. And you're an artist because you do that. And if you can think like an artist. See, before I met my wife is an artist. She's a musician, right? And she said to me, certainly, maybe before we were married, but certainly at the beginning, she said to me, actually, she bought me a book called The Artist's Way, and she said, "You're an artist." And I never thought of myself as an artist. So I started thinking of myself as an artist. And then I started writing about myself as an artist. And I started actually living that life as an artist. Because until she said it in language, I couldn't actually look at all I had done and go, holy, you're right. Look what I created. Wow. Right? So that's what we do. That's what you do. That's what we all do. And we do it with conversations that we co-create everything together. So my question for you is, what are you? Put a language into existence. You do it every day. You do it with your mindset when you wake up. You open and close possibilities based on your own thoughts, based on your own actions. And as you go through each day of your life, know that. Right? Do your moods have you, or are you in control? Do you have a story? And that's the main thing. I mean, that's the main thing. If you don't remember anything I'm talking about tonight, is you have a story. You have a life. It's a story. And it's your job to write it. It's your job to create it and involve people in it that you want in it. And get rid of people that you don't want in it. If you want to be a doctor, you hang out with people who want to be doctors. If you want to be a lawyer, you hang out with people who want to be doctors. If you want to be a loser, you hang out on the street corner with people doing drugs, right? Whoever you're hanging around with in the conversations you're having is creating your reality. You're creating your reality. You're all doing it together, right? Be mindful of that. Be mindful of your story. Write it down. Talk about it. It's powerful stuff. There's a book that, I don't know, it came out about 15 or 20 years ago. I usually reference this a little earlier on, but there's two parts in here. It's called The Four Agreements. Anybody hear of this book? Yeah. So it's a good read. Do you remember what they were? Yep, that's one. Two, yep, good. Yeah, so, but it's a good read, right? But if you read it 3 times and you talked to a bunch of other people and shared about it, you'd start to embody it. If you read it once and go, yeah, it was a good read, good. Did you change? Right? And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to change. You want to engage in practices. What that includes is 4 practices, right? And you had 2 of them right. That's good. That's more than most people get. Very good. Okay? It's be impeccable with your word. It's what I've been saying all night. It's your language. It's what creates your reality. It's what creates the people around you, right? The next one is don't take anything personally. That takes years to get good at, right? Because we're this biological thing and we're kind of just triggered by our environment and, and people say stuff and we go, eh. The easiest thing to do is go, if you wouldn't accept advice from them, then why would you accept criticism from them? Right? Whatever people say is just their own story. Whatever's going on in their life up until that point they meet you, it's irrelevant unless you say it isn't. Right? You don't take things personally. When you do, you give the other people power. So easy to say, easy to read, good read, hard to do. But when you practice it, and you listen to it on tape, which is great to do if you're driving around, and you talk to other people about it, and you make it part of your practice in your life, man, it gets easier, and it gets easier all the time. And when you're working with all kinds of people, oh my God, when you're not taking things personally and you focus on your story and where you're going, and you're not derailed by other crap, oh my God, much easier. But, you know, when you're 5, they give you a bicycle. Do you learn to ride it like that? I read the Cliff Notes. I can do that. Right? You can't, because it's an embodied practice. And like anything that we do in life, you have to practice it to get good at it. And soon, you know, maybe you're 12 and you can ride and you can tune your what do we go, you know, your iPhone or whatever. You can ride no hands. You can talk to friends, you know. But it takes time to get there, just like anything. The other is don't make assumptions. I like to use that as more like don't make assessments, because we are assessing machines. That's what we do. We walk around and we go, is this safe? Is this hot? Is this cold? We can't help but do that. It's more like don't act out of them. Like if you can't come up with something that you go, okay, that's good and true. Okay, I'm going to make that assessment at this moment, and I'm going to act differently because of it. Great. But if you're making quick assessments and assumptions and you're acting, it's going to mess with you. It's going to mess with your story. Okay? And the other one is always do your best, which is, again, what we were talking about with the who do you work for, right? So, yeah, good read, right? Read it 3 times. Share it with people. Listen to it on tape. Anything you come across that you go, man, that's great. Try and find a way to incorporate it. They actually make little cards you can get on that, you know, and people who take and embody that stuff, their life does become much easier, right? Life is messy. Stuff goes wrong. It's just the way it is. But the more focused you are on who you are and where you're going and surrounding yourself with people who help in that story, it's great. You want to be the main character in your own story. You're going to be minor characters in everybody else's story, but you just don't want to be that. And the way you do that is through your language and through practice and through study and through working and through surrounding yourself with all kinds of people that make a difference in your life. And that is where we get to question and answers. Anybody have questions? I'm going to get the microphone because we want to do this. Anybody? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jonathan, and when you first started, as far as capital goes, how did you start everything, or you know, when you first started your first business, you saved up a certain amount of money, or who did you go with? Because I think that's one of the biggest things as far as an entrepreneur goes.
Great,
start
keep
off.
that in case we have to have a conversation. The first thing I want you to see is he stood up and he told me his name. Standing up is different from sitting down. For you, all of you, you saw who he was. He stood up. He made a declaration. He said, my name is Jonathan, and I have a question. Total leadership move, right? That's what you do. You stand up and you speak from standing up, okay? So as far as the money goes, yeah, that's always tricky. Always tricky. In this case, it was an old barn that was on the property. The parents already had the mortgage on it. And we borrowed $40,000 from my dad's IRA. And we got a bank that loaned us $40,000 as a matching thing. It was actually a bank that was trying to get into commercial lending, and we were their first commercial loan, so that was kind of fun. And then we did a lot of the work ourselves. Yep, hung the sheetrock, laid the tile, right? Did the painting, helped the electrician, helped the homeowners, did all that work, right? And that's what it is. It's called sweat equity, and literally that's how it's done. But as we grew, the next one, we did it. We had a little bit of a reputation, so we had a bank willing to loan us some more money. The third and fourth one, we now had a story that was recognizable in the marketplace. We had 2 successful restaurants, and we had good employees and a good story, and so friends and family were willing to give us money at a rate. We promised them interest only for the first year, and then a 5-year payback on the principal. So we took them in not as partners, but as equity partners. So when they're all paid off, we retain the full ownership of the business. But it goes back to the story. How can you sell it? Are you telling a compelling enough story? And a lot of times when you start a business, people think you're crazy. They'll happily buy stuff from some musician who started the business. But for some reason, somebody local in their own area, they're unwilling to, support. And that's who they should be supporting. But yeah, it goes back to your story, a compelling story. Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah. This is how I get my exercise. So yeah, just do the same thing. Stand up, tell me your name, and give me a question.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eric. So my question is, when you start in this business, like, I don't know if you heard of this book. It's called Rich Poor Poor Dad or something.
Poor Dad.
Yeah. Did you read that book to motivate you to be to be in the entrepreneurship field, or what did you like? How did you became like entrepreneur? That's because like I was reading that book over the summer, and it talks more about like entrepreneurship, like how to like network yourself with people. So it's just a great book. So
there's all kinds of books out
Yeah.
there, and there's some you'll read and you'll resonate with you, and some you'll read and go, and some you'll read and go, man, I should read that again,
yeah.
okay? We're all motivated and mobilized by different things in the marketplace and different stories and different people we have around us. So for you, you've read a book and you go, man, this works for me,
Yeah.
right? Read it again.
All right.
Ask a friend to read it. Talk about it,
All
right? But what motivates me
Mhm.
is me. I have a story about my future and what it looks like, and I'm trying to get there. Right? I have kids I got to get through college. I have a retirement that I want to fund and hopefully, be there, right? I want to be healthy, right? So I go to the gym, I play squash, I take walks, I do Tai Chi, I do Qigong. It's all part of my story, right? But what motivates me in that story is me.
So my question is, right, so when you start your business, or when you become like in the entrepreneurship, like entrepreneur, how long it takes you for you like to go through like all this process?
It doesn't end. I'm still learning, right? So one question I had a while back is when you went from one business to two, what had to change? Because managing one business is different from running two. So the first thing I did is I called a friend who had done it. I said, what's going to go wrong? What do I have to look out for? What do I need to do that? So I reached out for help, right? That was the first thing I did when I realized we were going to do that. And I got some of the help I needed, but even after that help, it took me 2 years to get good at it. Because I had to go from managing a business, processes, and people to managing the story of two different businesses and managing a manager who's also an equity partner. Different style, different skill set, harder to do, right? So I had to practice, I had to be mindful, right? I had to talk to other people about it and get better. That's really what we can do when we do anything, right? You gotta step up and you go, I gotta learn this. And you get people around you to help you.
All right, thank you.
And that's true with any business. I mean, you don't do anything by yourself. You can't do anything by yourself. I mean, one of the things I like to talk about is like toilet paper, man. You think you're doing it by yourself. You're not. Thousands of people were involved in that just to get it there, right? It's all teamwork. Everything goes on. You need people. When you start a business, you need to get people who are like-minded, but also have different skill sets. And if you're starting a business and there's certain aspects of skill set that you don't have, you have to hire it or go find somebody else, right? That's important. You've got to take a look at what you have and what's missing and try and fill the gap. Sometimes it's education, sometimes it's other people, right? But we need people around us, and we need good people around us. It goes back to your story. Do they want to come and work with you? Right? Another question. Same thing, stand.
Hi, my name is Khalifa Kareem. So typically entrepreneurs experience setbacks or failures that they learn a lot from. So my question would be, what's one of your biggest setbacks that you've learned the most from in your experience?
So failure is just another stepping stone. And we've done some projects that failed. We spent some money and we hit a wall and couldn't get any further. And you just go, okay, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? What can I learn? Let's move on, right? I mean, all the self-help books and all the entrepreneur books and all tell you that failure is part of the process. And so that happens. When we started 85 Main, we were undercapitalized. We did not have enough money. And we struggled to get through that. We made people wait. You know, going through that sucks, but communicating with them, communicating with people what your problems are instead of trying to hide them, right? And saying, look, this is what we're up against. And they're more than happy to work with you, right? So always being clear in your story. It's like, I'm undercapitalized, it's not working, my cash flow is not there yet, right? So I need this or I need that, can you help me? And so some of our lenders were, okay, you know, don't pay me for 6 months. Great, right? But it's yeah, there's a failure, but what am I doing? And you know the story, it's like you fell down 7 times, but you got up 8, so you didn't fail yet, right? There is really no such thing. You just keep going and figure it out and learn all along the way. And don't let it mess with your mood. I read a great quote somewhere, I may probably Facebook, you know, about that every day is just a new chance. It's a new day. This is going to be a great day. What happened yesterday is irrelevant. Work with that mindset and go. You know, the what ifs and what coulda, woulda, shouldas, bleh. It doesn't do you any good unless you're actually going to learn from it. And the problem is, you know the saying, people learn from their mistakes? Have you heard that? It's not true. It's not true. People learn, well, first when they recognize they made a mistake, and then have a willingness to actually go and take a look at it and go, okay, what have I done? And then be in another conversation about what am I going to do now to be better in the future? All that has to happen. You just don't learn because you made a mistake. You have to be engaged in it. You have to accept it, right? And then you have to forgive yourself from there and get past that point of it, right? And then move on to resolve. And then you know, let it go. Don't get caught up in you know, coulda, woulda, shouldas. That just gets you nowhere. The word if, it's 2 little words, but man, it can spiral your mind out of control. Oh, if only I had. Too late for that. What are you going to do now? You only have now forward. Let's go from that. Okay? Anybody else with a question? You've looked like you've had a question. Do you have a question? No. Oh, man, you had that questioning look in your eye. Anybody else? Come on, you got a story. You're going somewhere. Yeah.
My name's Steve. I was wondering, how do you go from just having an idea and actually going through with it, getting it off the ground, and instead of just daydreaming about it?
One step at a time. I do mine by writing about it. I'll take it, I'll write a business plan, I'll do some drawings if I have a concept. I talk to other people about it. I engage with other people that might have the same kind of knowledge as I do, or maybe something a little different. And I flesh it out in language and in words. And if it looks like something that'll work, then we keep going down that path until it either hits completion or you hit a wall that's not surmountable. So one of the ones where we hit a wall that wasn't surmountable is we were going to open up a little natural foods market that would not only service our restaurants, but also the area we were in. But I wanted to create it in such a way that it was in an old barn and it looked like it belonged there and, you know, the right thing. Well, the problem is you can't get money to do that. They want you to build a strip mall where you have other tenants in case something fails. So if you're got this, we were leasing the land. We had a 50-year lease on the land, and we had this story of one structure and one business, and nobody would loan us any money. But my story was only the one business on that piece of property because it was crucial to the story. Building a strip mall as part of it wasn't part of my story, and it wasn't going to work the way I wanted it to, so we said, we're done with that one. So yeah, you explore it. You live it in language. You get people around and you try and see if it'll work or not. That's the best way to do it. It's the only way to do it. Yeah. Anybody else with a question? Yeah. All right, I have a question for you. At the beginning of this, I promised you that we would have a little bit of fun and you might be exposed to something new. Did I fulfill on my promise? Okay? You need to do that where you're making promises to other people. If you've made a promise, check in. Did it work? If you're in sales, this goes a long way. Right? If you're a salesperson and you've promised somebody something, you go back and you check. Because a lot of times, believe it or not, people don't. Right? When we do caterings, I always call them up and go, did we fulfill on our promise? Did we do what you asked us to do? Right? that goes a long way in building repeat business. Goes a long way in building relationships. And relationships is really, you know, what gets us through this whole crazy life. Because you don't do it alone, and you do it with the words you use. All right, so if there's no more questions, I can, you know, can end it there, and thanks, and I hope it was something good for you, and I have fun doing this. I don't know if it's you can see that I have fun doing this. I love doing this. I love working with the age group that you guys are, because you're open, because you're going somewhere, right? And you can hear it. You get an idea. So think about your story, where it's going, where you want to go, and know that we just, as human beings, as biological beings, we do it all with the words we use. And read that book again. All right? Thank you, everybody.
That sweat equity is the way that a lot of people get started. 30 years ago, he's, you know, putting up sheetrock and painting, you know, and putting a lot of that sweat equity into the first restaurant, the Vanilla Bean Cafe. That worked well. Took that story, opened the second restaurant, 85 Main. You heard that. Then it was Dog Lane Cafe, and most recently, Fenton River Grill. Because of his having an idea, acting on that idea, and then making it happen, 140 people get paychecks because they work in one of those 4 restaurants. That's another thing that entrepreneurs do. They really prime the economic pump.
That's a benefit to me. I mean, it sounds great. Oh, I've created all these jobs, right? But I surround myself with all these people, and some of them are great, and some of them grow in the ranks and become managers, and one of them became a partner, right? The other ones become the regional manager. I mean, it's so rewarding to be around these people and watch them grow, and it's so rewarding to see them leave us and go other places. There are 5 restaurants in our area now that are owned by former employees. There's one who started with us back in the year 1990. He is now the executive chef at a restaurant in Westport that does like 500 dinners a night on Friday and Saturday. He's doing very, very well, and there's a number of other people who have worked for us and have taken it to another level in different industries, and it's just great to see. We just did a 30th anniversary party, and we invited back a whole mess of former staff. Anybody that found out about it could come and show up, and it was great to see what they're doing and interact with them, and it was just, it's rewarding to me. That's just fun. And we're at the point now we're hiring the children of former employees. That's cool too.
I always like to give a thank you gift when I have a speaker come in, and typically it's like a gift card to a restaurant, and well, that doesn't work very well in this case, you know, and sometimes it's wine, and I figure I can't really buy a bottle of wine for somebody who probably buys wine by the truckload, you know, and has forgotten more about wine than I'll ever know. And then, you know, it hit me, what's the one thing that every entrepreneur just wants more and more and more of? Customers, which then lead to that, customers. And so I thought, okay, I know what I can do. I can get him maybe a couple of new customers. So I have a couple of gift cards to the Fenton River Grill. Go ahead and pull one name out of there.
I want to respond to that.
Oh, okay.
So interestingly enough, a lot of entrepreneurs, it's not money that motivates them. You know, it's a byproduct of what motivates them. If they're good at what they do, it's a byproduct, and that's what makes them successful. But what motivates them it's not the money. If you talk to them, they didn't get to do what they're doing because they thought they were going to make a lot of money. They did it because they care about what they're doing, right? And that's the different story. If they're going just after the money, that's meaningless and hollow when you get there, right? So really, it's the mobilization, and it's almost, I mean, any entrepreneur you meet, they're never going to tell you, oh yeah, I did it for the money, unless they're going to make some joke about it. Yeah. All right. How many do we have?
We have 2. So
Two.
gift card to the Fenton River
Yay.
Grill.
First one.
Gabe Begg. I'm going to let you give it to him.
All right.
Okay, and we have a second. Chelsea.
Yeah. That's fitting, isn't it? Yeah.
How about one more hand for Barry Jessurun?
Thank you.